Over the last 10 years, Sana Products has established itself as one of the premier juicer brands here in Europe. They kind of focus on the high-end sort of luxury area of the market because they like to include lots of premium accessories. They focus on design, on performance, and on durability. And like other premium juicer brands, they're priced to match. But recently they've introduced a more affordable value-priced model. Hi, it's Dan with EUJUICERS.COM, and in this video I'm going to be checking out that juicer. That's right here, the Sana 818 automatic vertical juicer. I'll talk about the pricing, the value proposition, talk about the design, the features, try to look at ways that Sana was able to make this more of an affordable machine. And of course, I'll juice one of my favorite recipes so we can see how it does. So let's get started. Now, back when I first started reviewing juicers for EU Juicers over 10 years ago, there was only a few brands on the market. Nowadays, there's all kinds of juicers you can find online and e-shops, brick and mortar stores, things like that. They go as cheap as 150 euros for an automatic vertical juicer. But among the premium juicer brands, there's 3 or 4 here in Europe. You're typically looking at a starting price point around 500 euros. For example, with Sana, their least expensive machine would be the Sana 707. That's their iconic horizontal juicer. That goes for about 500 euros. In fact, that's the first slow juicer I purchased 10 years ago. It's still going strong. And Sana's lineup goes all the way up to 1,550 euros. That's for the super premium, all stainless steel Sana 929 Ultimate. But with the 818, Sana's been aiming for a more affordable price point, trying to streamline the product, include just what's needed to reach a wider audience. And of course, the price is going to vary depending on where you're watching this and when you're watching this. But right now, late 2025, here in Europe, the MSRP is 349 euros. So that puts it about 150 euros less than their previously least expensive juicer. It's about 200 euros less than the big brother to this, the Sana 878. So Sana here is focusing on a affordable, more widespread model. Let's take a closer look at the design. Now this Sana is an automatic vertical juicer. All vertical juicers basically consist of 3 parts. It's a cylinder, and the bottom part is the motor base, middle part is the juicing chamber, top part is the feeding assembly. In the past, this was always a feeding tube where you would manually feed small pieces of produce, push it down with a pusher. But in the last couple of years, these automatic vertical juicers have become much more popular. And there's a few reasons for that. But let me show you how that works. If I open it up, you can see inside here, there's a rotating blade. So you fill this up with your produce, and that blade turns, it kind of sorts everything, cuts them, and then slowly feeds them into the juicer. Now there's a couple of advantages to this system. Most people really like them, and one maybe slight disadvantage. The first advantage is there's less prep work. Because this is bigger, you don't have to cut everything to fit the small opening size of a typical juicer that has a feeding tube. However, that might not be as big an advantage as you think for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you put in bigger pieces of produce, like these apples, if I want to put a couple of apples in there, I might be able to fit 2 or 3 into one of these hoppers. But if I cut it up, I could fit all 4, no problem. And the juicers will tend to do better when you cut the produce into smaller pieces, kind of like I've done with carrots here. And also for long vegetables like carrots or celery, you're going to have to cut it anyway, which is something you wouldn't have to do with a standard feeding tube. Standard feeding tube, you can feed a full carrot. Something like this, a full carrot's not going to fit in one of these automatic hoppers. But the other biggest benefit is that you can pack it with a bunch of produce and then go do something else. It's the convenience factor. So maybe what you do, you pack it the first time to make your juice recipe. And with most produce, you're going to need to pack these juicers more than once. So while it's juicing, you can be prepping your next round of ingredients or doing something else, cleaning up or something. It's that big convenience factor. The slight disadvantage, maybe, might not be such a big deal, is that these automatic juicers make juice significantly more slowly than a manually fed juicer. That's because with a manually fed juicer, you're using a pusher and you're forcing the ingredients in. They're going in faster. The juice is being made faster. With these, it's processing the ingredients. Like if I put an apple, you saw those blades in there. Sometimes the apple will sort of surf on that blade. It'll bounce up and down a few times before the blade will actually catch it. So there's a little time wasted there in a sense. But again, if you're doing something else while it's processing, it's no big deal. Now, in terms of overall design of this juicer, this is kind of a compact vertical juicer. It's a little smaller than the typical automatic vertical juicer. That's based on the motor base and also this hopper. The standard self-feeding hopper for these premium vertical juicers is 2 liters. You can even get some optional ones in some brands that go up to 3, even 4 liters, but those get really big, take up a lot of space, and they're quite a bit harder to fit into a kitchen. This hopper here is 1.6 liters, so it's 20% smaller than standard. And Sauna did this because they're designing this to be a more compact model to be able to fit into a kitchen a little better. By reducing the size of the hopper, it's a little lower. I take this out, and you're able to fit it under more countertops than you might otherwise. The other way they were able to make it smaller in height is by recessing this middle part, the juicing chamber, into the motor base itself. If I lift it up, you'll see it actually is quite a bit bigger than you see there, and it sits down into there. So this juicer is fine. It's suited if you have a smaller kitchen or lower countertops. Ideally, or not countertops, cabinets. Ideally, if you have lower cabinets, you'd want a horizontal juicer. Those, they're only about this high or so. But if you're looking at verticals, this will fit into most kitchens better. Otherwise, in terms of design, it's pretty, I wouldn't say sleek, but it's innocuous. It's modern. It's there's not much to it, as the same with most verticals. It's a simple design. One way Sauna maybe was able to save a little money is that it only comes in one color. That's soft white. Now, back when I first started doing videos, white was all the rage for juicers, but it was a hard plastic gloss white that kind of went out of fashion, became replaced with different colors, and matte black came into style a few years ago. But just in the last year or so, we've seen a resurgence in white, but in this matte white, this soft white. It's got a textured finish, a lot easier to keep clean than a glossy juicer, and it's just suitable to fit into more kitchens. The only other real notable design of this, besides the slightly compact size, is this power dial here. Most juicers use a toggle switch for on and off. Sauna likes to put these power dials on instead. And how this works, you just turn clockwise to turn it on, put it back into the middle to turn it off, and then hold it to the right to reverse the motor. Now, you're not going to have to do that much with an automatic vertical juicer, because the only time you hold it to reverse the motor is when the juicer jams. But these automatic juicers tend to feed things more slowly, and because of that, it's a lot less likely to jam. For example, if I had a standard feeding tube and I'm shoving big pieces of beet in there, that could jam the juicer. It's too much pressure. The juicer has a sensor to protect the motor and it'll stop it. And then you need to reverse the motor to bring those bits of produce out of the jam. But in something like this, it's feeding smaller pieces much more slowly. You'll probably never need to reverse the motor, or very rarely. So that's a look at the design. Now let's take a look at the features. What comes with this juicer? So in terms of features, Sauna designed this to kind of be an essential juicer. What that means is they thought of what do people use, what do people juice, and what is exactly what is needed for that without a lot of unnecessary extras in order to keep the price more affordable. And that's what they did here. They designed a juicer, a quality machine, it has good performance, it's durable, looks good, but it doesn't have a lot of extras. Now, you can get these extras optionally if you want for some of the things. And what do I mean when I'm saying extra? Well, all Sauna juicers come with 3 screens. That's a fine juicing screen, which has the smallest holes, the highest squeezing power, and that's what people use on 90 to 95% of their produce. But Sauna also includes a coarse screen with all their juicers. That has bigger holes, lower pressure, doesn't squeeze as hard, doesn't make as much juice, but it can be useful if you're juicing something softer like berries or red currants, even pineapple sometimes if you're juicing a lot of it. Those big holes won't squeeze as hard, but they're less likely to clog up. Now, if you're doing things like berries or currants, you can still do it in a fine screen. You just need to mix it with other ingredients like carrots, something that's hard that'll push things through. And the other screen that Sauna includes with all their juicers is a blank screen. That's a homogenizing screen, turns the juicer into a food processor. You can make things like nut butter and salsa, pasta on some juicers, things like that. Or in the case of their big brother Vertical 878, you can make sorbet only. It's a sorbet screen. Sauna decided, in order to keep the price more affordable, just to include that universal screen, because that's really all you need unless you want to focus on a lot of really soft fruit quite often. In that case, you might want to consider another model. The other area that they tried to streamline the juicer was in terms of these containers. Now, all premium juicer brands come with containers just like this. They're big, they're BPA-free plastic, and they hold enough to make a lot of juice. This one will hold about 1.5 liters here, and this pulp container is pretty big as well. But Sauna normally includes premium containers. That means glass, in some cases Bohemian crystal. One juicer has a big vacuum pitcher if you're bulk juicing and you want to store it for a long time. And Sauna also includes stainless steel pulp catchers for all their models. However, any of those you could purchase from Sauna if you want to add it later. What they wanted to do is kind of make it a la carte. Offer the basic thing, everything you need, and if you want some of these extras, then go ahead and get those. So in terms of features, it's pretty straightforward. It's an essential juicer. What I want to do now is actually try it out. So I'm going to be juicing a mixed juice recipe. This is one of my favorite recipes. It's apples, carrots, ginger, and lime. These flavors complement each other really well. Before I do that, I want to turn on the juicer because I've had some comments lately in some videos. We always put music on while I'm juicing, and some people wanted to actually hear how loud the motor is. So let me just turn it on. You can hear it. It's pretty quiet. Of course, it'll be a little louder when there's carrots being crunched in there and things like that. But it's a quality motor, 150 watt. And speaking of quality, I do want to say the first impressions are good. This hopper is really thick. It's Ultim BPA-free plastic, and it's solid, just as solid as the 2-liter hoppers as well. So I want to show you why I would cut up apples. Not only in this, but in a 2-liter hopper for sure. 2 liters is just going to be a little bit taller. As you can see, I can fit in 1, maybe 2. Well, in that case, no. Probably if I had smaller ones, yeah. I could fit in 2 apples, handful of carrots and stuff. Obviously, I'm not going to fit a full carrot in there. But I will juice a whole carrot, and then I'll probably cut these up just because that's what I do, and also you leave out the core of the apple as well. So I'll start feeding it, and let's see how it does. So it's almost gone through the first round. And one thing I did want to say is there is an opening here on the top. So the way these are designed, due to safety regulations, at least here in Europe, if you open it, that's going to shut the machine off automatically to keep anyone from injuring their hand inside. But you can feed things through here no problem while it's juicing. So if you've cut things smaller, you want to throw a handful of things in there, that's fine. And also, normally I would juice with the tap open. The only reason I juiced with the tap closed is so we can get, one of those shots of opening the tap, seeing the juice come out. But normally, if you keep the tap closed, you only want to do that if you're mixing juices or if you're making nut milk, which vertical like this can make really good nut milk. But otherwise, you'll get slightly better yield because if you leave it closed, the pulp is getting soaked and some of the juice is getting soaked into the pulp. So let's keep going. It's just about done here. Now, in terms of yield, all of these automatic juicers, if they use that stainless steel juicing screen, not the ones that use the plastic interlocking mesh screens, which are easier to clean but get lower yield, all of these type will get roughly the same yield, maybe plus or minus 5 to 10%. And the 818, I've tested the yield before, and it gets comparable to other vertical juicers. We're talking around 50 to 55% yield on carrots, 60, 65% on celery. Verticals tend to get pretty good juice yield. So let's pull this around. I want to taste it. I made about, I don't know, 1,250 mils, maybe 1.5 liters of juice. And that was from 4 apples, a kilo of carrots, 2 limes, and a couple pieces of ginger. Let's try it out. Yeah, there's a reason why that's one of my favorite recipes. There's enough ginger in there to give it a bite, but that lime balances it out a lot. And then the apple and carrot just naturally complement each other. If I could add one thing, maybe I'd throw in a handful of baby spinach. That would help out a bit. So that's it. This is the Sana 818 automatic vertical juicer, kind of an essential juicer aimed at really 2 groups. First of all, the first-time juice buyer who wants to get a premium juicer but doesn't want to break the bank, or in a lot of cases we see it's a second-time juicer, someone who got into juicing with a real cheap juicer just to see if that was for them, and after that broke down, or after they wanted to move on to something better, moved on to a juicer like this. Again, it has all the essentials you need to make a good glass of juice to get a high yield quality product. Hope you like this video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thanks for watching. I'm Dan with EUJUICERS.COM, and I'll see you next time.